I decided to run for mayor of the city of New Haven because, particularly in the past budget cycles, I co-chair the Appropriations Committee, so I'm looking at policies of the state, and I noticed that for a number of the policies that there have been what I would consider to be a drift. I think most people don't recognize that we're held accountable as a city and that other cities are competitive with New Haven for certain types of policies. So one of the policies that I've been most interested in is early childhood education. And when we looked, this was at the beginning of the biennium, at the governor's proposal to propose 500 new units across the state. We upped it to 1,000. There are a number of members of various caucuses in urban areas that were concerned about that because they felt that even though we had the 1,000 slots, that they wouldn't go to urban kids, and that the real thought was that for the extra slots was to reduce the healthcare, the educational disparities. And when I looked further into New Haven and particularly Hartford, one of the things that I discovered is that a third of all of our seats were held by suburban kids. And while that is fine if there is equality and opportunity for education across our regional areas and across our state, and if we didn't have an achievement gap, that would be fine, and knowing full well that the way that you really stop the achievement gap is not after they've gotten into elementary school, but before they go. That's what all the studies tell us. Then that would be fine. But the other competitive nature of the General Assembly is that we're competing against other towns, and those seats are treated like they're ours. And so we can't get more seats because we already have more than everybody else, but a third of them are used by suburban kids. And so that what we think we're doing, the policy is basically drifting away from where we think it is. When you look at workforce development, so many people now are concerned about jobs, and you look at our Workforce Development Board here in New Haven, it's a 20-town region, so all of those resources are spread among 20 towns and for populations that don't have the same kind of need that we have. And so going from policy area to policy area, it's really clear to me that we need a different kind of advocacy if we're going to get state and federal resources than we have had, and that we've got to assure that from a policy point of view, things don't drift. It's clear that community-based policing, which I helped to start, the late 80s, early 90s, was allowed to drift for about 10 years. And so 1991, you have 34 murders. In 2011, you have 34 murders. 1991, an aggressive community-based policing initiative was started, and the number of murders and shootings the next year reduced by half. But something happened in the middle, and there was a drift. And here we are, 2011, 34 murders again, hundreds of shootings. So, and no community-based policing. So it was another policy that was allowed to drift. And I feel that when we know what works, when we know what we need, that we've got to stay the course, and that we've got to actually make the improvements that we know work. And so that's why I decided to run for mayor.